This is going to start soon enough, guys, so don't worry about that. Start trying to guess what's the first item. Now we see both runners starting here in Link's house, trying for the first chest, which only has a big heart in it. It's not something useful, but they'll find something probably good soon enough in the sewers here, in the secret passage. It's often a strategy to go this way, just because it's an easy couple of items to go through, and there's a pull tree they can find. It looks like they just ignore it for now. It looks like this seed has been giving them a lot of love so far. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, it looks like it. Maybe it'll be a healthy seed. Oh, looks like we got Moon Pearl.
Finally something useful. Well, not for now, but it will be later on when they want to explore the Dark World. Now, I've seen a lot of these races, and it seems to be a standard approach to go look at the Lumberjack Cave, then Skull Woods. You just go around Kakariko Village to just raid every house they can and find all the easy locations right off the bat before trying to go into dungeons.
Looks like even the tree pool is healthy.
Crab's only dropping blue rupees, so that won't make a lot of difference too. Oh, and looks like it's only a big heart on the ledge of the Lumberjack Cave, so that's... We still don't know if it's an Agaham seed, but that points to that being not exactly a required one when there's nothing useful there. Now, I said earlier that Joey Mittens here is playing as a custom sprite with the frog, which is pretty cool, as you can see. There's a lot of different sprites people can choose when going into these races. I think they're up to like almost 30 different sprites right now. It's really amazing what people come up.
Yeah, the frog has been one of my favorite, I think, because I'm a big fan of Chrono Trigger, so...
Yeah, it's definitely well made. Shout out to whoever made it in the first place. I myself tend to use the purple chest just because it's a pretty funny one.
Oh, we got Fire Rod.
In a bottle and early silvers. Those are pretty cool item. Having a bottle early means they can check Sick Kid right now, save him a trip to go back in Kakariko Village later on. And seeing early silvers is always fun because you can just at the beginning start saying to yourself, okay, no silverless Ganon.
And the lamp.
Now, lamp is a pretty good find. I feel like most of these seeds, whenever you find a lamp, you also tend to go and it's a stretch off your back because now you can go through every dark room in the game without any trouble. Then again, it might also be a small indicator that they need to go for Agaham, because it's one of those items you need to, by the logic, need to go beat Agaham. Now we we've seen Joey pick up his blue mail, which is going to be very useful at the beginning of the game while they don't have much heart. So they can take a few more hits here and there. Now, we haven't seen much from the seed so far. Fire Rod is a great weapon to have as it kills most enemies in one hit, but it requires a lot of magic to use each shot. So these guys aren't out of the woods yet. Yeah, the bug net is not a very useful item per se, as it can help them grab a few fairies here and there, or bees if they're into that. But it's more of a good item if you want to show off, especially against Agahim. So we'll be still judging them by style points at the end, and that's definitely important. Now, the ledge here only has a bottled fairy. Might want to skip that as it's not super useful, especially if these guys feel good enough not to go to the detour and grab the fairy. Now, we still haven't seen a map check from either of these players, and it might change soon enough their route depending on which dungeon has a crystal here, as early Eastern tend to be a pretty good gamble early on, but there's still a few places they can check for items, like right here at the dam and Mini Moldorm Cave and the Ice Rod Cave. Now, as I said earlier, these guys only have bombs and fire rods, so they'll need to go. Moldorm fishing here to kill these mini Moldorms, and it's not easy as their pattern are pretty much random.
And got the power glove and some extra cash to go with it.
Oh, this is... this speaks to me like it's going to be a Zora seed one way. You need to go check him early because the way is pretty much open right now. With the second 300 rupee pickup and the power gloves, they can go the long way around to do it, or they might want to go through it the short way by doing the fake flippers. We'll see what they're doing. As chat is saying, going down the escape is also a pretty good idea, as there's 3 more chests to look down here. Unfortunately, it's only a bunch of rupees and love. Nothing really useful at this point.
Finding the red boomerang over in Ice Rod Cave.
Not a bad find. It's one of those items where it's not really required to beat the game with in any way, but it has its uses here and there, especially for hitting switches instead of using bombs or arrows.
I find it's also nice when you're running around without a sword to have it, because you can stun enemies to get past them.
Oh, definitely. That is a great use for it. And who knows, maybe the stun pack will actually be something useful.
It's always nice when that happens.
Now, here Hugh decided to fake flipper his way up to Hobo, which we will probably go check Zoro and Waterfall Cave soon after, since he has the Moon Pearl. It's a minor sequence break that a lot of people tend to go for, since it does give you access to a few more items location, but it's still pretty easy to get. In the meanwhile, Joey decided to go up Death Mountain and rescues the old man, which only gives him a piece of love. There's a few more locations he can go check up Death Mountain, but there's nothing much left to do here, so this is looking more and more like Zoro is the correct play to go for. Hugh barely dodging that fireball from the Zoro. Needs to be careful, because if you get hit while you're in fake flipper mode, you die, because you get stuck. Now, there's nothing good inside of Waterfall Cave, but now he'll be checking Zoro and the Zoro Ledge soon. While Joey is going to check on Sriracha and Eastern, possibly.
And finding yet another heart on Zora's Ledge.
And Zoro only having a piece of heart. Now these players, they would probably start asking themselves, well, where are the items? Joey going for the early Eastern is not a bad play. There's a few chests he can go look into.
Got a map check on Hugh's side. I saw a pendant at Hera, and the other two were crystals, but I didn't catch the numbers.
Seems like our tracker is doing a pretty good job identifying that Eastern was either the 5th or 6th, so it's a pretty good crystal to grab early on. Fortunately, these guys won't be able to complete the dungeon just yet, because they need the bow to kill the red Cyclops a bit further in the dungeon. Ooh, and Joey finds the mirror inside of Eastern. That's probably the way to go now, since with the mirror he can go up to Hera. That is true that you cannot kill Moldon without a sword or a hammer, but as these guys are going through different ways here, there's not a lot of weapons that they've found so far. So it looks more and more like they might have a weapon inside of Tower of Hera.
Especially since they already have 2 fire sources, so they could still go into the basement in Hera.
Yeah, that's true. They have everything they need to check all of the tower except the boss. Now, another trolley location these guys haven't checked yet is Agnes Cave, and I've seen plenty of times that Hammer was there. Joey doesn't find anything else inside of Eastern, but he does have the mirror, so it's already a small advantage for him early on.
And looks like he's going to go up to Hera now.
Hugh, on the other hand, is going to check Desert for Agnes Cave. Like I said, it's one of those trolley locations that the hammer could be in, so let's see if it pays off for him.
And only a red rupee out there.
Oh my, this is going to make Tower of Hera pretty difficult to go through. As Joey just shown, they don't have any way to hit the switches. Well, he doesn't have a way. Hugh has the red boomerang. Forced to save and quit because he's out of bounds, so he has no way to hit the switches. That is unfortunate, but he will soon enough find a few more locations he hasn't gone through.
Looks like Hugh's heading over to Eastern now.
He will in turn find his mirror. Now, there's a few more locations these guys haven't been through that could help them find a few more items, like an escape right now is still something they could do. They don't have much to kill, but they have enough. They do have the fire rod and bombs, and with the boomerang, they could stun every enemy and just kill them pretty easily.
It always seems, though, to me like they don't want to go to escape if they can avoid it. Either that or they just forget that it's there, since if you're used to playing the regular game, it's the first thing you do and just forget about it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where in open, it's difficult to remember sometimes because it is not exactly in your way. Now Joey has his red boomerang. We'll see where he goes from here.
Looks like he's thinking maybe go back to Hera and try again now that he can actually hit the switches.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, but without bombs, he'll still be stuck soon enough while trying to come up to inside the tower. He needs to find a way to deal with the beetles. We do have to remind that these seeds, they're not easy, and sometimes you can get trolled really hard by one or two locations that are really far off. This right now looks like it's looking more and more like Escape has something valuable in it.
It's like Joey realized he had no way to deal with the beetles.
Yeah, that room is very hard to go through without your proper weapons. And, while not having any bombs and only boomerang, you need a bit more weaponry to go through.
It's like Joey's taking his shot at Agina's cave. And Hugh making the same decision that Joey did to get out of the beetle room.
Well, looks like Joey will soon might go to Zora, as he still hasn't checked himself.
Looks like Hugh may be deciding to go actually give Escape a shot.
And so is Joey. Now they seem to both have remembered that they haven't been to Escape yet. So we'll soon see on both of these guys' streams what's the progression item they're missing.
With as trolly as this seed's been so far, I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like mushroom to shovel to an actual progression item.
That is possible. As you can see, using boomerang strats and bombs, it's very easy to damage these guys. You just need enough bombs to make it through. Oh, when did you get out?
Did he forget about the chest down in Zelda's prison?
I think he did. Ooh, that might hurt him if there's something useful there. Only finds a map. Now there's still an item in escape though, so in the middle part of it. Oh, that's true. If he did count the item, maybe he realized that there's nothing useful in that chest since the last chest has a key. So he did do good here, and we are the ones that got fooled on this one.
It's like Joey's finally deciding to go give Zora a check.
He will soon be disappointed by what he finds, but at this point he will be forced to go back into Tower Hill. And the dungeon continues to go on this trolley adventure as they are forced to go in the basement. Joey taking a few seconds here to look at the map, probably scratching his head. But I can understand why. I would be scratching my head myself if this was the only location that's left.
And the hook shot.
Wow, that's a nice find. Now the game just opened up a bit more as they can go explore Eastern Death Mountain. And it's also a pretty good weapon by itself. because any enemy that doesn't get stunned by the hookshot dies from it. So it's a very good thing to find early on, even if it's not, even if you don't use it necessarily for the same reasons.
Powder and the Titan's Mitt. That was a nice find.
Indeed. Now, since they already have the Moon Pearl and the Mitts, they'll be able to go in the Dark World soon enough by going through the entrance that's to the north of Kakariko Village. And it doesn't look like Aga will be required, but we're still not sure since part of the Dark World overworld is still locked by the hammer. So unless they find a hammer somewhere, like inside Skull Woods or Thieves Town, or any of the overworld locations that they can access, Palace of Darkness, Catfish, and Pyramid are still locked. Looks like Hugh making the play to go look what's at the Eastern Dark World here on Death Mountain, which is a pretty good idea since he has the hookshot.
Getting a map check on Hugh's side.
Skullwoods being a pendant, and so is Swamp. It's a green pendant on Swamp, yeah.
Nothing good in Hookshot Cave either.
A bit unfortunate, but at this point, there's so much they can explore in the Dark World with the Titan's Myths, so it's not a there's plenty of more stuff they can go look. Now it looks like Joey's still looking where to go. Yeah, sorry, Joey, you can't open that way with only the bug net. That's only useful on again himself.
Looks like Q's going to check out Skull Woods.
He can go check out the 2 items in Skull Woods, and it's a pretty good idea since Skull Woods tends to be stacked in version 26. I do believe the statistics said there's about 31 or 32% chance of having a progressive item inside Skull Woods, and considering it only has 2 useful items in it, that's a pretty good idea to go through.
Finding the magic cape.
Yeah, it's going to be useful later on if Bumper Cave has anything useful, or it might be useful to actually get into Agnahim's tower.
Always looks so funny to me when they're lining up a bomb jump like that and they don't have the sword to help them line it up.
That's true. Link does look a bit funny there. Now, after finding the cape, he immediately checks Bumper Cave, since he has everything he needs to complete it, and unfortunately it's only 50 rupees. But that's fine. Since he's there he might go for what's that behind Graveyard on the Light World side, since he has the mirror.
Looks like that's exactly where he's heading.
It's one of those locations you tend to forget after a while if you don't go check it early on.
Oh, looks like Joey got hit while fake flippering.
Well, he looks like he's still fine, since he got hit on the same screen where he transitioned in the first place. So he got reset to a safe place. No problem here, only a bit of time loss. Now Hugh may soon go into Thieves Town, as he technically has everything he needs to complete it except for checking the big chest itself. But he can go kill Blind. Wait, no, he doesn't have a way to hit Blind. Well, there goes my theory. So he'll probably go check more items around, trying to find a weapon of some sort. There we go.
And finally does.
So, as I was saying, Blind needs... there's a few weapons that can hit Blind, such as a sword, a cane of Samaria, the blocks that do come out of it, and also the beams that the blocks make. The hammer can hit it, the cane of Brian can hit it, and I think that's it. Since he does have a way to kill him now, it won't be long before he'll go there. Now on Joey's side, he's still searching for what he needs to do to progress in this scene. Q finding a boomerang here, which is not very useful since they already have the red boomerang. But for some reason, some people like it more.
Looks like Joey's decided to go through all of Escape.
Soon to be disappointed by only a small key in this chest here that's coming up. Got a couple of lovesmiths here. Now it's interesting his route here to go check purple chest, as since he does have a weapon, he can go into Thieves Town right away instead of checking purple chest. Usually people tend to check it a bit later off when they have the book and the master sword, so they can check the bombo stab at the same time, and all these small locations here and there in between.
Speaking of bombos.
Looks like this seed is listening to what I'm saying. Now, bombos is one of those items that may be required depending on what dungeons are locked behind what medallion. And we already know that bombos is required in this scene since Turtle Rock has a crystal and it's locked behind bombos. So as soon as they find the Cane of Samaria, this seed may put them in Turtle Rock early on. They can't beat Trinex without the Ice Rod, but Ice Rod can literally be anywhere. It's one of those items you don't want to go looking for, but you don't have a choice sometimes. We already find Ether inside the purple chest. That's another one of those items that can lock a dungeon. And we haven't seen what Meyer is locked off as, since the only way to get to Meyer is with the flute, which they haven't found yet. Now guys, are we going to see a hype cave or another disappointing cave?
Looks like it might be sending them to Turtle Rock.
Indeed, now that they have the Cane of Samaria, it's only a matter of time before we see somebody go up there and go check what's inside of it. Turtle Rock just does have a lot of items in it, and between that and going to other locations that have a few less items, it might still be a good gamble.
Looks like Q might be thinking Thieves Town, and I can't really say I blame him. I'd much rather do Thieves Town than Turtle Rock.
Oh yes, especially since he's still on Fighter Sword and no hammer. I would not want to fight Trinex with that. at least in Thieves Town, he's only up against Blind, which doesn't matter what weapon you use on Blind. It's always the same number of hits. It's 3 hits per head, so 9 hits total. It's more of a scripted fight once you know exactly how he moves and how he reacts to your movement. So there's a lot of people, once they're good enough, they can do Blind without being hit at all. Hugh finds this small shield, which is not very useful, but it could be something that can lock the laser bridge in Turtle Rock sometimes, as shields are progressive, and the mirror shield is one of those items that can lock the bridge there if they haven't found the cape or King of Brian. Of course, there's ways to go through anyway on the bridge without the mirror, but by the logic means, it's something that you should not be able to do, like fake flippers.
It's like Joey's going to try diving into Harrow one more time.
Now, he has plenty of bombs, so he can go through the tower and find himself his hookshot. Hugh is making his way pretty fast to Thieves Town, as with the blue mail and the powder, he's in really no danger at all. It's not a very hard dungeon in the first place, and with these safeties, he's pretty much going through the dungeon very, very fast. Now, I wasn't counting the treasures inside of Thieves Town. Have you been?
I lost count myself.
Because there is 4 treasures inside of Thieves Town, and maybe there's one locked behind the hammer in the big chest there. Blind only dropped himself a compass, so he looks like he's going for the magic bat, which is a great location to check. It's one I often forget about myself. Hey, that's not a bad item.
And it's a nice one to pick up. Looks like Joey's finally decided to go for his coffee break here.
Takes a definite tile rooms, take a bit more time, but it's things that happen. Tile rooms are not forgiving in this game. Meanwhile, it looks like Hugh is going towards Ice Palace, which is a pretty good play considering ice is a crystal and he has everything he needs to go in it. But he cannot complete it though, because he needs the hammer. Now, Joey finally finds his hookshot. He'll be able to explore a lot more of Death Mountain and find himself some mitts and be able to explore the Dark World himself. He did take quite a bit of time to find it, but we never know what other gambles he might make in the future and maybe make up some of the time. It all depends on how Hugh goes through all these dungeons. Because we still don't know if this seed is a pedestal seed, and that might change how these guys go around and do their dungeons. Nice bomb jump. Did not think he was on the correct frame, but he changed at the last second and made it through. Joey taking a bit of frustration out on these Tektites. Now there's a chance Ice Palace does have the hammer in it, and thus he could complete it in one go. But if it's not here, never mind that. Every time I start talking, it looks like the correct item just shows up.
I think they're going to want you to start talking about things like the Master Sword and...
You know, there's this thing called the commentator curse, but I think here we got a reverse commentator curse going on. But it's not over yet, folks, as they still need a couple of items to finish this seed and be in go mode, such as the Master Sword, the Ice Rod, and the bow. Those are And of course the flute to go into Mire. And since we still don't know if the pedestal is required or not, the boots might also be required. Joey checks on what medallion is required at Turtle Rock and finds out it's Bombos. He'll soon find it himself. Not a very far location, I remember. Where was it?
Oh yeah, it was the cave southwest of the Haunted Grove.
Yeah. And here goes the Master Sword. in the ice palace. Now that was a very stacked ice palace so far. Now Hugh is coming up to Cold Stare, which is not an easy fight considering what he has right now. But since he does have the Master Sword now, it's not gonna take like 10 minutes to kill him. But since he has Bombos, he'll be able to keep some of that magic for a few Fire Rod shots. Uses his potion to not die at Cold Stare. It's a pretty good idea considering he's doing rather well so far. And he's done with it. Good job. Gets rewarded with a useless key.
Looks like Joey's heading over to the digging game. Unfortunately, going to be a little disappointed here too.
Yeah, with an ice palace stacked as like that, he will need to make some gambles to go to Ice Palace pretty early on if he wants to catch up. Now Hugh is looking to go into Swamp, which is only a pendant, but it is the green pendant, and Swamp has, well, a lot of items in it. 6 items total. So it's not a bad gamble per se when you're still looking for all these pesky items all around the place. Hugh only finds a few arrows in the first chest here in Swamp, and he'll be progressing, I hope, pretty fast into this dungeon, as maybe it's required, maybe it's not. We still don't know if it's a pedestal here or not, because these guys still don't have a book to go check the pedestal. It may be a good gamble to actually finish the dungeon to get these pendants rather than leave and have to come back later on. What do you think?
I think you're right.
Yeah, because it's only a small detour to just go and beat the boss, especially when you have all the means to get through him quickly. So might as well take the time.
Plus, considering it's the green pendant, you get the one item from Sahasrara.
That's true. It's an extra incentive. Now that's true that another place they could have gone to is explore a bit more on the eastern part of Hyrule and see if what's on the pyramid and catfish and look into Pod to see if the bow might not be hidden inside of there. They do have enough items to check most of Pod if they don't get keylocked early on. Now Hugh here just did probably the best trick in the game, which is a flood key skip. It's a pretty hard thing to do, to remember not to flood the key here and lose about 5 minutes to going out of the dungeon and back in. It's also unfortunately something you do once or twice when you run this game, but you never forget about. Meanwhile, Joey is going through Skull Woods, trying to find the correct items to complete his dungeons, but doesn't find anything useful. Now, one thing I could see coming up soon enough is probably the Ice Rod, just because these guys still have a lot of other locations they can check, and Ice Rod can be at a lot of different places in this game. I said earlier it can be anywhere, but of course that's depends on the logic itself. Since Turtle Rock is required, it can't be at Ganon's Tower, and it cannot be on the boss himself, Trinex. But apart from that, it's the only place it's useful for, so it can spawn pretty much anywhere else.
I think Joey's getting trolled by the Gibdos a little bit. It always seems to happen to me in this room.
Yeah, it's not an easy room to go through, especially without the cane. And since he hasn't gone into T-Town yet, he does not have it. Now Q finds the best item in the game, the bee. Now, before you all laugh at my terrible joke of bee being the best item, it is somewhat useful here and there to clear some rooms. It's something I've used a bit in the past. Like in Gauntlet, there's a few places you could use it to clear enemies faster.
That's actually something I'm going to have to try next time I run this.
It's or other places that when you don't have a weapon, like early on, there's also the Moldorm Cave you could use in it, and where else? Oh yeah, you know that room in Eastern, the dark room with the two Cyclops, one of them has a key? That's also a room you could use in it to kill the enemies very fast. Of course, it's not a it's not a very good item per se, especially the regular V, but it can be useful. Sometimes when you don't have much, you use everything you have. Cube gets rewarded with 20 bucks and a green pendant for all his troubles. In the meantime, Joey will be getting bombos here, and soon after Ether in the purple chest.
Okay, he did go back. I thought he was going to forget his chest there for a second.
Yeah, that would have been maybe terrible if Ether is required in this seed. Because there's nothing worse than thinking, oh yeah, I did this, but you didn't because you either skipped the location or forgot something like the chest. Now, I did not see what was on Pyramid, but judging from how he skipped it, it's probably a heart or something like that.
It was a bomb upgrade.
Oh, even worse. It's one of those things where if you find a couple early on, it's fine, as 10 bombs is not a lot to go with. But now, yeah. An hour in, you don't want to find those. Hugh just let out his good friend the bee to get a few good blue potions. It's not a bad trade up. It's a bit more useful overall to survive and have magic on hand. And yeah, the witch does heal you when you talk. So it's one of those things where there's a few NPCs here and there in the world where you can talk to get a free heal. Another place that people tend to forget is every NPC that asks for you for a bit of money to give you a tip, they also heal you. One of those is in Northern Hyrule in the Dark World, where the Sanctuary is in the Light World. There's a small cave there. You can talk to a guy. He'll talk a few text boxes long and give you a free heal. Well, I say free heal, but it's 20 bucks. It's pocket change.
And all of the fortune tellers as well.
That is true. So when you're in a bind and you're looking for hearts, better lose a bit of money and maybe a tiny bit of time to get this healed rather than taking a death somewhere. Especially in the Dark World overworld. It's not a fun time loss to have. Now Hugh is going to the Spike Cave. This is an interesting gamble. A Spike Cave, well, to me, always has nothing useful in it, but maybe it's one of those times where it does have something useful. And nope, only a piece of
Just
heart.
a little bit of love.
So yeah, Hugh looks like he's going more for a turtle rock than anything else, which I really would do the same if I were him. There's a lot of items in Turtle Rock. I believe it's 6 if you count Mimic Cave. So that's a lot of locations where he can find the ice rod, the bow, or the flute, or even the book to enter desert. Maybe something's useful in there. We still had. I think neither of these runners have checked the ledge, desert ledge, if there's something there. Now Hugh is now inside Turtle Rock, and he still need to be a bit careful because there's a few enemies here and there that can really hurt you a lot if you're not careful, such as the Chain Chomp guys are coming a few rooms in. Now that's a bit of a secret that helps a lot in these later dungeons. When you have the powder, you can powder an anti-fairy and get a fairy out of it, and it's a very good safety, especially in Dark World dungeons are full of these anti-fairies. It's a pretty good way to just go through these dungeons without much trouble.
It's like Joey's diving into Thieves Town.
Now we'll have another look at all the treasures are in there, as last time we forgot to count, both of us. He already found 20 rupees. I know there's one of these 4 chests at the entrance that has a small shield. So that's 2 treasures down. Because if that big chest in there has an item that could be something important, we'll see if Hugh remembers it. Fortunately, Hugh does remember to go inside of the Mimic Cave, which can be a very trolly location for something like the Ice Rod. But he finds only pocket change.
Finally finding the flute.
It's a pretty awkward place to find it, but at least he'll be able to progress to another dungeon very early on after this one. And the Cane of Brian. Not a bad item per se, but I think when it's found later on like this, it's often disregarded, especially when you already have the cape. And now we'll be coming up to the famously called Laser Bridge in Turtle Rock, which will be pretty awkward without any magic. Might use a potion to get through these. We'll see. Decides to open the last chest with this. And now without the Ice Rod, he can't kill Trinex, so he immediately gets out of there, not losing any time going forward until he gets in the fight and realizes, oh, I can't beat one of the heads. Yeah, this hasn't happened to me at all, guys. No worries there. Yep, it looks like Turtle Rock having the flute is probably... It's a good possibility that Meyer has the bow now. But Meyer having the bow is not a bad place for it to be, especially since having both the bow and silvers on Vitreous makes the fight a complete joke. Another thing that's to note here is since he has the mirror in the flute, he can now also enter Desert Palace by the back way.
Looks like that's what he plans on doing.
Yeah, I think it's the better way to go through these, as there's less places to check in desert, and you can go quickly look inside to see what's on the torch and what's in the map chest. And if there's nothing useful there and you can't complete it, well, you immediately get out with the mirror. Yep, just like that. Now, since the big key is on the torch there, he cannot complete this dungeon without the boots. That doesn't mean that desert is required though. You still need to look out for that. Ooh, and tempered sword. That's a nice find. It's gonna make most of these bosses a lot easier now. Since Master Sword is required to beat Ganon, but it's not a fun sword to beat him with, as he only takes damage with spin attacks. Now, at least with Tempered, he can go and just slash away. And it does look like it was Ether Lock on Meyer. Good thing they went through and got the purple chest, which it was in.
Looks like Joey's decided to see what Pod's hiding.
It's a good play on him, but unfortunately we both know that the hammer was in ice, so he won't be able to do much in there. But maybe he'll find something like the bow, which might send him in another direction completely. Now, Meyer is one of those dungeons that, whether you're in go mode or not, doesn't change that much, since they tend to have to look for the big key a long way through it anyway. And since these guys are still looking for a few valuable items, they will need to open every chest in there. And there it is. Now, the big key is one thing that can troll you a bit inside this dungeon, and depending on where it is, it might change a bit of your routing through it. It looks like Hugh is deciding to go on the vanilla left key location, the vanilla big key location, I mean. while Joey is not finding much on his end so far.
Joey did find the book.
Ooh, that is interesting. An interesting find since he can go and read the tablets and the pedestal now. One thing we haven't considered is Bo may be on pedestal, since all 3 dungeons that are pendants are not Bo locked. Oh boy. Start speculating, gentlemen, as I believe that we might see a pedestal seed after all, because this seed has not been very forgiving. And there goes
And
my
there's
theory.
Again, you start talking about it and it shows up.
Now there we go. Indeed, this is Bo mode. Not quite go mode, but close. Now this means that these guys need to go inside of Turtle Rock to get the flute, to get the bow, and we might need the bow to get the ice rod. And if that's the case, that's a pretty long chain. Joey here taking a small break, might still be looking what his next gamble is, what he can do. And there you see it, guys. How Vitreous only melts to silver arrows. It's a very trivial fight when you have silvers here.
And finally getting to use those silvers they picked up over an hour ago.
That's true. They were, like, I believe in the first chests in Kakriko village, in the Blind's hut. Hugh will now is looking like he's going to go through Pod and Eastern at the same time, completing both of these dungeons very fast. But still looking for locations because they still need that illustrious ice rod. Now, I don't believe Joey has been counting the items here because it looks like he's returning inside of Skull Woods, unless he's checking for the pedestal, which I can understand the way he's going through it. Get your pedestal hype in, guys. This is it. Or almost.
Maybe he's thinking go ahead and get the pendant while he's here?
Yeah, that's not a bad play. I mean, if he thinks that this is already a pedestal seed, might as well go get it. But it's not going to be an easy fight the way it's going on. Without half magic or at least a master sword, it's not going to be a fun fight against Mafia, even if he does have a few good safeties. Hugh is still going through Pod, blazing through every room pretty fast, especially against those mimics there. Silvers make short work of him.
And finally finding that ice rod.
Now that is a great find, and unfortunately it's still not go mode though. They still need to find the boots because Desert is still locked without them.
Joey diving into his Mothula fight. Trying real hard not to knock him into the spikes.
Don't know if he still has that red potion. Oh, he doesn't need it. He gets through the fight.
That was impressive, and finding the boots from it.
The boots! The boots on Mothula! Wow! The plays! What are those? Man, that's amazing. That's gonna be such a hard find. Now we know for sure now that the pedestal isn't required, unfortunately. Yep, he confirms it by just looking, and it's only a piece of love. Yeah, now Joey has found something pretty good. And that's gonna. if there's any way possible for him to come back from his early time loss, it's this way. He made a play to go through Mochila early on with, let's say, a pretty crappy gear, but that's he's doing pretty well now, since he can now complete Desert.
And I wonder how long it'll be before Hugh decides to dive into a pendant to try to find those boots.
Indeed, because I thought they got both items inside of Skull Woods. And if I thought that, maybe Hugh also thought that. If that's the case, he won't be finding those for a while.
Especially because I'm betting he's going to go back to T-Rock to take out Trinex next.
Yeah, that would be a good bet. After he's done with both Eastern and Pod, going for Trinex is... It's not one of those things you want to do, but you know you can do. And at this point, between finishing one of the last crystal dungeons or exploring more dungeons like that, he might be more in line to go checking more overworld locations for the item, for the boots, which we know can't be anything useful. Joey finds himself a fire shield and quake. Meanwhile, Hugh goes to Palace of Darkness and defeats King Helmasaur. Gets himself one of those two 5-6 crystals. That's another location he might want to check too. Once he's done with Eastern, he might go check inside of the double-chested fairy behind that big bomb wall. Now Hugh's gonna go pretty fast through Eastern, as he already explored more than half of it early on to go find his mirror. So he only needs to go forward and go defeat Armos very quickly.
And that's a fight that'll go nice and fast with those silvers as well.
Indeed. Only 1 silver per head, and it's going to be done in only a blink of an eye. In the meantime, Joey is coming up to the land boss fight, which with the fire rod will take very short time too.
Both of them finishing their dungeons at the same time.
Now, Joey is still behind by a good margin here, and he must feel behind too after that beginning. But since he found the boots, he'll tend to skip more overworld locations than Hugh, which he seems to be going for right now.
Looks like Hugh is going for that double-chested fairy.
Might find himself a golden sword there, which does save a bit of time here and there, but not so much as finding the boots.
Joey diving into Ice Palace, which I've always found is easier with the boots because it's easier to change your momentum.
Definitely. Ice Palace tends to be a bit hard when you don't have them. Like you said, it's the boot stops your momentum to start charging. So if you want to go somewhere in the direction, you can just use the boots to quickly go change your direction. Now, imhughbliss found himself half magic, which is a pretty good reward in itself. It's not required by any means, but it's going to make the last part of the game quite a bit easier. Oh, and it looks like Hugh is making his way through Skull Woods again. So it looks like he's tired of looking over all locations and he's finally up to go inside and finish off Mothula for those boots.
And Hugh will have a much easier time with Mothula than Joey did.
Oh, for sure. There's a big difference between the fighter sword and the temperance sword, and that difference is color, friends. Orange is much better. Oh, and damage too, yeah.
Joey getting his hammer.
Yeah, that's a good find for him, as with the hammer it's gonna tell him he needs to go a few more places if he wants to find his prize, the bow, inside of Mire. But before going there, he'll need to dip inside Turtle Rock. And he's already done with the bug and finds his boots. He is now in go mode. It's only going to be a quick trip inside here to grab his big key, and then he'll be straight for Landmo's without looking any other chest locations, because he knows he has everything he needs to complete this seed.
This is by far one of my favorite tricks that I've learned from watching these races, is the way to get into Desert from the back.
Ah, yes, not requiring the book to get in. It's one of those tricky things where once you find out about it, you get, that's cheeky. Well done. Joey also finds his Master Sword, so that's one less worry. You did a pretty good fight here on the Landmos, who only take one shot with the silver arrows. Yeah, silvers is one of those items that if you do find it earlier with a bow, you can totally just get through these bosses very, very quickly. Now he only needs to go through Turtle Rock again and defeat Trinex, and he'll already be up to Gan's Tower in no time. So we're talking here he's almost done. It was a pretty interesting seed overall. As Chet was talking a bit, it was still pretty linear the way the items were placed, except maybe once they got the Titan's mitts, it was a bit more open there to know where they had to go. But apart from that, it was a pretty much not so bad scene. Trolly in the start, but not so bad after that. Joey finds a single grain rupee in the bonk rocks. He'll be checking probably a few more locations on the overworld, since he did find the boots quite early on compared to Hugh, which is not saying something very good for him, considering we know everything is in dungeons. He might find the red mail or another sword somewhere. Which will help him a bit here and there, but it's not what he's going to be looking for, though. Did Hugh ever turn in his green pendant?
Yes, I believe he did.
Ah, it was only bombs. Yeah, it's one of those things that can happen. Sriracha has nothing good, as always. Ooh, cool cane strats there.
Looks like Joey's about to dive into Turtle Rock.
It's a good thing for him, as he does need to dive into Turtle Rock to find his flute, and thus unlock this whole seed by going into Myron, finding his bow. And Q showing Trinex who's boss. Now chat, I believe it's tradition that when the player completes his last crystal dungeon, you start guessing for what chest in Ganon's Tower has the big key. And my guess is always the second chest, as it's so fast when it's that chest.
But with as trolly as this seed's been, I'm gonna have to say Tile Room.
Yeah, that's also a popular choice for a trolley seed as that. Who said torch? Why would you say that? Well, there goes my guess. Hughes decides to kill the animals today by destroying whatever item was on Torch. I believe it was a small key. Unfortunately, it also kills Bob. You monster.
Well, Hugh's not hurting for keys this time, at least.
Oh, that's true. He has plenty of those. Ooh, and that I believe was chest 8. It's a pretty quick tower. Yeah, Chain Chomps are one of the worst enemies in the game. They hit very hard. I believe with the blue mail, it's 3 hearts the bop, so you really don't want to go hug him. Now, Hugh went through that whole ordeal called the Gauntlet pretty fast. It's not a bunch of hard rooms to go through when you have proper equipment, but just the annoyances sometimes, especially with the RNG of the conveyor belts and the ice floors and the randomness of enemy movements and the BMOs. There are very intense rooms to go through fast at least.
Joey finding his disappointment in Mimic Cave. But he did get his flute.
Yep, and now the later part of Turtle Rock is pretty disappointing, as he'll soon find that there's nothing more he can do in here. So he'll need to go explore somewhere else after this. Now Hugh fighting the hardest boss in the game, Trolldorn, and gets through it pretty fast. Gets a heart from the validation chest and makes his way up to Aghanim 2. Now, are we going to see some Swagging strats? It doesn't look like it, but I wouldn't say it was... I can understand why, because 2-hour win, and especially since how he's been routing the dungeons, he probably feels like maybe, oh, this seed is pretty long, maybe my opponent's ahead of me. Joey decides to open the safety door, which I can understand why, since it's pretty easy to die here just like that. Yeah, and then with the important lore, I wonder if we're going to see some cape strats on Ganon, since he does have half magic. Ganon already in his third phase, won't be long now, especially since he has silvers and the tempered sword. This fight is pretty much already done at this point. We just need to be careful not to fall into the pit. gets the torch glitch, so now he has even more magic to work with, but it's not like he needs it. With silvers and half magic, he pretty much has done with this fight already. Nice double there. And imhughbliss finally gets his Triforce and finishes in first place with a 2 hour, 4 minutes, and 3 seconds. That's a pretty nice time considering all the ordeals these guys have been through. So, GG.
Joey's about to find him a sword upgrade.
Yeah, he will be getting his temper right here, which is it's a pretty good confidence booster. It's gonna help him go through what's left of this game pretty fast. Now, it looks like we'll not be getting an interview right now, but we might get one from Joey later on. We'll see what happens. Still, GG to both these runners. Hugh on winning first place and Joey on still persevering and going through this annoying seed, I would say.
It's kind of an understatement there.
Because we need to say that these randomizers here, they're not easy to complete by any means. I mean, for me, when I first started playing these randomizers, I think my first seeds were about, I don't know, 4 hours, 5 hours long. And I've seen some first playthrough seeds being something like 8-9 hours. So it can take a lot of time to complete. These guys are doing an amazing job going really fast through them.
They really are. I know when I started, it would take me 10 or 12 hours to get through a seed. And so far I've improved to about 8 hours.
All right, that's a lot better. Some people tend to have less difficulties, but a lot of people in these randomizers tend to come from a speedrunning background, especially if you speedrun A Link to the Past. You know all the locations, so it's a big plus going into these races. But that knowing about everything is not the only skill that's important. It's also decision making and analyzing. Okay, I got this item. Now, where do I go from here? It's that quick thinking. It's something important in randomizers. A lot of practice, quick thinking, and if you're not feeling you're on par with your opponent, making gambles.
And another thing to mention, speaking about how good these runners are, if you're not following them, make sure you do give them a follow, because they are doing such a great job here.
Oh, sorry about that. Had to go away there for a few minutes. It's raining pretty hard, and wanted to make sure everything's closed up so it doesn't have something bad happen. Now,
Back just in time for Joey to find his bow.
oh yeah, now he'll be able to rain down on any enemies that come his way. Especially on Vitreous that's coming up right now. Now, going through this dungeon mire, it's not an easy dungeon to go through. As you can see, there's a lot of dark rooms. These guys were pretty lucky in finding the lamp very early on, but it's still possible for them to go through dark rooms. Of course, the logic doesn't take into account that. but it's definitely something you need to practice at higher levels if you want to beat your opponent. This is one of the more harder rooms to go through, with all these small railings all over the place. It's not something that anybody wants to do, and when you don't really know where to go and want an early advantage because the dungeon is a crystal or something, some of those of the best runners tend to go for it, and it's a good skill to have, to be able to go through dark rooms without the lamp. Joey makes quick work of Vitreous here and gets himself another crystal. And with the bow in hand, he'll be able to go into Pod and Eastern very quickly and find his ice rod inside of Pod on the right side where it is bow locked. Ice rod was behind the chest on the ledge on the bow side. Yes, in Palace of Darkness. Palace of Dungeons, please. Now, since he's already been through most of the dungeon, he knows that the only way forward is this way. And I hope he doesn't skip any chests. He needs at least to open one of the two to find his small key to complete the dungeon, and the other one has the ice rod. There we go. And I believe that's his go mode right now. Joey making quick work of these turtles with the tempered sword. It's a very good sword to have early on, just because it does so much damage, and most enemies tend to die in one hit with only the tempered sword. So having it early means you need to spend less time pushing enemies off or killing them, especially in these rooms where you need to kill enemies to progress. And as I said earlier, it makes the Ganon fight so much more easier. Now you could see the full glory of the silver arrows and all of their lagness. Now, since the early routing was pretty much the same, Joey's gonna go in Eastern, finish it quickly, as he did go into it early on too to get his mirror. And after that, it's only going to be a quick step inside of Turtle Rock to finish Trinex, and up the Ganon's Tower he'll go.
We'll get to see one of my favorite fights with the silver arrows again, the Armos Knights.
Indeed, silvers on Armos are certainly welcome. Much better than Boomerang Almos, I'll tell you. Now, as chat was asking, there's a lot of more races going on here and there. Most of the main tournament races are on Speed Gaming. Speed Gaming 2, 3, 4, and most of the tourney, this tourney, the secondary tournament, are on Randomizer Mania channels. Now, for today, I'll go look at the schedule if there's anything more to look after this. Tonight there is going to be the match of Willard J. Bradley versus Sidereal later on. Still need to confirm which channel it's going to be, but it's supposed to be at 7:30. On the secondary scheduled tournament, there's going to be 2 races at 7. One is Commodore versus Chauncey J on this channel, and the other one is Zebra Unicorn versus Lanxion on Randomizer Mania 4. Now there's also Sailor Jade versus Maniac L42 on Randomizer Mania 2 at 8. And at 8:30, there's Felix Sierra Cat versus Cool Pants Guy on Randomizer Mania 3. So there's plenty of stuff to watch tonight, if this race wasn't enough for you guys. In the meantime, we'll look at what Joey does as he's finishing this seed. He doesn't have a lot more to do, as we said earlier. Just a quick trip inside Turtle Rock, which is all but empty. And then it's going to be a quick trip up Ganon's Tower if he goes on the left side, as most people tend to do, I think. Joey now right at Trihex. Gonna start on doing the fast trap by going for the redhead. Looks like he wasn't quite fast enough. And blue head decides to spit a bit of ice on the floor. Fortunately for Joey, he didn't have to use a potion to get through this fight, as if you use all your magic without killing both of the heads on the side, you're kind of stuck there because you can't beat him. You need to use both rods on both heads to get through this fight, which is not that hard, but you still need to be a bit precise with these rods.
Especially without the half magic to help you out on that.
Oh yeah, half magic is a great stress off when trying to do this fight. Or if you have a few potions lying around, that's pretty good too. Looks like Joey is going for the play, going on the left side of the start. Just gonna, oh, or not. It's quite rare that I see this play to open the middle door between the two rooms. Especially early on, where you don't know where the small keys are, and you might get key locked. Well, not key locked, but forced to go one way or the other. Getting trolled a bit by the mimics and the BMOs. It gets through. Not an easy room to go through, especially that one. When you don't have the mirror shield, these mimics can just push you so far away, and then you get lasered by the BMOs, and you're just out of position with everything all the time. Opting to skip the fairies here. He's going through Gauntlet pretty fast. Now, did Joey get a potion somewhere? Because if not, he's pretty low on hearts, so he needs to be careful.
I know he got a green potion before, but I don't think he got a red or a blue.
He does have some powder, so yeah, he's opting to use it on the bunny beam here. It's through the first room of the Wizard room, which is with the cane strats, which is always awesome to see. And gets a nice 2 round on the second room. Ooh, got blocked there a bit because of that. I don't know what it's called. That enemy there that just follows around the room and looks like a big light.
The glowing fuzzball is what I've always called it.
Good name. Yeah, those your fire rod shots don't go through, so it's kind of trolly sometimes. Speaking of trolls, looks like Moldorm is having none of it today. He's doing his best to just bleed more time. Fortunately, Moldorm is no match for Tempered Sword. Oh, and he skips. Oh, he went back. And no. Oh, he gets it. Okay, he was seriously thinking about it for a second here. Nearly got ourselves a disqualification. At least he didn't bombos the chest. I've seen that a few times. Again, being his usual bad self and giving him really bad patterns so far. And there we go. Gets the wizard down and on to the Ganon fight. Now, I don't know if he plans on going in this fight with only 4 hearts, but if so, it's it's gonna be a hard one. Being on 4 hearts and blue mail means he can only take 1 hit of any source, really. Joey takes the death, but it's not a very costly death, as when you die from Ganon, you just respawn on top of the pyramid. And now he has a bit more hearts to work with. Ooh, that's a great spot to be in.
Okay, I have to admit, that was really cool.
Yeah, when Ganon gets in a corner like that, it's very easy to just stay inside his spinning trident and just go all ham on him with spin attacks. It's pretty cool. Didn't use any cape strats, but without half magic, I can understand why. Gets the torch glitch though. And there we go, Ganon is down. And GG to the Joey Mittens, finishing with an official time of 2 hours, 40 minutes, and 20 seconds. Gets him the second place in this match. What a seed! What a seed! No, that was quite something to commentate, I gotta say. Was not expecting this kind of seed today, with all the going back and forth in these dungeons.
That was a really trolly one.
Not the worst, but not certainly not what they call a jet seed, where you finish in under an hour 30. But at least these guys gave us a pretty interesting seed and routing all over the place, especially with those boots on Matula. Oh, such a weird location for them. Was not expecting that at all.
I was honestly expecting the boots to end up on pedestal.
That would have been pretty cool. But not today. There's plenty of more races to come to check out your pedestal seeds if you want, people. So make sure to follow these runners, the Joey Mittens and imhughbliss. They've given us a pretty cool match today. And there's a lot more to come tonight. There's more races on this channel and other Randomizer Mania channels. And of course, there's also a few more races coming on Speed Gaming. Now, looks like we'll not be getting an interview from Joey either. So I'm gonna go out and say huge shout outs to our restreamer Jigheart and our item tracker Sir Linkalot. You guys been doing a pretty awesome job at that. And of course, my co-commentator with me, Lee W. Bradley. It was really fun to do this with you today.
I had a great time too. Thanks so much for helping me out on my first time.
Oh, it was no problem at all. I love to commentate. I mean, I love it so much I'm commentating another one in about 2 hours. So in the meantime, people, you might want to grab a bite and come back for some more Randomizer later on. So see you guys on the next races. In the meantime, follow these runners, like I said, and follow the tracker, restreamer, and why not both of us too? I think we did all right as commentators tonight. Today, still not the night. Well, it might be depending on where you are, but whatever.
Everyone have a wonderful rest of the day.